What's up, students? Welcome back to Small Groups. This week we're going to kick off a brand new series called Rhythm. When you think of rhythm, you probably think of music, maybe even an instrument, maybe even dancing. But here's what I want you to think about, and maybe you've never thought about this before, is that you have a rhythm to your life. What it really just means a pattern of the way we do things. And the season that you're in now has a very different rhythm from the season you were in the summer. Right? You go to school every day, and after school, every day you probably have different things that you do, different sports or practices or extracurriculars, and every week, for the most part, they're the same. You might even have a rhythm to your life at home. Maybe for you and your family, maybe there's a night of the week where all of you get together and you share a meal, and that's just on the calendar, that's a part of your rhythm. Maybe your parents are divorced or separated, and maybe for you, you spend some days with one parent and some other days with another, and there's a schedule to it and there's a rhythm. What I want you to see is that every single one of us lives in a rhythm. Sometimes it's chaotic, sometimes it's monotonous and routine, but there is a rhythm to every one of our lives. And the reality is, in your current season of life, most of the rhythms in your life are controlled by other people. Your band director wants you to do these things and to practice. Your coach wants you to show up to practice to stay on the team. Your teachers assign you homeworks and projects. You probably have a job, and your parents want you to do all these other things. And before we know it, we're looking at this long list of check boxes and things on our schedule that we have to do in order to make the team. We have to do in order to make the grade. We have to do in order to keep our parents happy. And then we come to church. And many times in the crazy routine and the crazy rhythms of our lives, we come to church and all of a sudden it becomes an obligation like many of those other things. And it's something that we have to do. And it's easy in some of those crazy moments and seasons of life and these rhythms to just go through the motions when it comes to your relationship with God and when it comes to small group and coming to church. And sometimes in those moments where we're at the event one night and there's confetti flying around, there's lots of energy, you're at small group sitting around watching this video, you're physically present in these moments, but sometimes we're not mentally present. We're not emotionally or spiritually present, and we're physically there, but we're not connecting with what's going on. And sometimes in those moments, we find ourselves questioning, why am I not getting it? Why am I not connecting? What am I doing wrong? Why am I missing it? This doesn't seem to be working the way I wanted it to. And listen, if that's you, I want to encourage you, you are not alone. Listen, in Jesus' day, there were religious leaders who many people looked to as an example. And these religious leaders had many, many rules and commandments and things that they followed. And it was almost like they had these long lists of check boxes. And to them, this is what it meant to have a relationship with God. They had to do all of these things. And every person's list looks slightly different. And so there's a moment in Jesus' life where he's in the temple and many of these religious leaders come to him and they're kind of debating with one another and they ask Jesus, they say, Jesus, of all our lists and rules and commands, which is the most important? Here's what Jesus said was the most important command for us to follow. He said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And here's what I want you to see. What was most important to Jesus was not you following a list of rules, but it was you connecting with him in a relationship. Listen, what I want you to see is that God doesn't care about a schedule. He cares about his relationship with you. And in some of these moments where we feel like we're not connecting, we're just not getting it, we're not feeling any different, we might be tempted to feel like we're doing something wrong. But here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about your group of closest friends, your friends that you are the closest to, that you run to, that you spend the most time with. And I want you to think about why your relationships are that way. And then I want you to think about how your relationships with that group of people started. And I would probably venture to say that you did not start that way. That you didn't start best friends. You didn't start with this group or this squad of people that you do everything with. You probably started as strangers. And I would guess that the thing you had with that group of people was probably rhythm. And here's what I mean. You probably had the same class with them over and over and over. You had practice with them over and over. You texted with them over and over and over. You hung out with them over and over and over. And it was over time, and it was over that consistent meeting and being with each other that your relationships grew. You may have met as strangers. You may have started as people who had some things in common, but it was over time that those relationships grew and that you began to become great and good friends. And what's true of your relationships with your friends is also true of your relationship with God. That your relationships grow when you're in a rhythm. And so maybe you need to be in a rhythm with God. If you feel like you're not growing, you feel like you're not connecting, I want you to look at your schedule. And I want you to look at what you do day to day or week to week. And has God and your relationship with Him in church and coming to small group just become one of a long list of things that you have to do? I want to give you some really simple next steps and ideas to try to develop a rhythm and a routine with God. But listen, before I do, I want to encourage you with this. Don't give up because you're not feeling it. In those moments where you come to an event or one night and there's energy and confetti, you come to small group and everybody's connecting and opening up. In those moments where you feel like, I just don't feel it. I'm here, but nothing's changing. I just want to encourage you. You're not alone. These things take time. They happen over time. And sometimes we're in seasons where it's just hard. So don't give up in those moments and seasons where you don't feel it. But here are a few things I want to challenge you to do and just to try. Maybe for you, you need to just set aside some time every day. Even just 2 minutes. Maybe it's when you wake up. Maybe it's on the way to school in the car, when you get home or before bed. Just 2 minutes to connect with God. Maybe you just need to pray and be still. Maybe you can read your Bible. Maybe you can meet up with someone at lunch or after school and just to talk about the things that matter in your relationship with God. And maybe for you, maybe you just need to commit to come to small group every week and allow that to become part of your weekly routine and rhythm. Students, these are just a few ideas. There are many more that you can pick from and choose. Talk about it with your small group. But even what is one thing that you can do for the next 7 days just to try? And as you try these things, students, don't forget this. The goal is not to have a routine and to have it on the calendar. The goal really is to connect with God. And so even as you set those few minutes aside, how can you remind yourself? It's not about just doing this and setting the time aside. I really want to connect with God in this moment. And so students, as we jump into this new season, this new semester, I hope that this is a challenge for every one of us to take. How can we develop a rhythm with God as we develop all these other rhythms, and how can we use it to go deeper in our relationship with God?